What's up everyone, Akukami here with a Diablo 3 Demon Hunter guide for you today. This guide will be centered around using Strafe as the main kill spell on your way to doing Alkaiser runs. Now this build is, I think, much faster than a traditional elemental arrow, hungering arrow type build, and it kills just as efficiently as if you were doing the run with that traditional build. Now, there are variations on this build, and I will outline some of the skills that you can use as alternatives in addition to several ones that you actually need in order to make this build work. I will also be breaking down some of the gear requirements as well as some stats that you will actually need in order to better prepare for this type of gameplay. So without further ado, let's move into the skills section of this build. Alright, so this is the skill set that I use. I had a lot of help from people from other different gaming forums and from watching videos of people using different skills on their Strafer, so thank you very much to all of you who provided suggestions and ideas for me. Strafe, you can use different runes on Strafe, but I recommend using either Rocket Storm or Demolition. I switch between these two and I don't really have a preference for using either one, so you can use either one of these runes. I just happen to have Demolition on. Chakram with the Shuriken Cloud rune. Because you'll be strafing through monsters, you want to be doing as much damage as you can to them, and having this extra source of damage, I think it's nice to have, and this is the one that makes the most sense. I've had people suggest to me to use the Fan of Knives skill with the Hail of Knives or Fan of Daggers or one of the other runes, but I don't think it makes sense because you'll be strafing most of the time and you'll be killing things really quickly, so having the extra little damage from the skill, it's nice to have. Vault is the skill that allows you to move quickly with this build. You can get from place to place really quickly and from mob pack to mob pack really quickly. And I also find that if you ever run out of hatred from strafing and you don't get enough health globes, you can use this as a secondary source of damage while you're waiting for your hatred to regenerate. I've had people suggest to me to use Smokescreen with the displacement rune, but I think you would better benefit from the choking gas rune if you decide to use Smokescreen. But for the purposes of moving around the map quickly, and because this is an Alkaiser run focused build, I recommend using Vault with the Trail of Cinders rune. Shadow Power, I'm using it with the Gloom rune, and I find that you can tank better when you're going through mobs that have these crazy elite and champion packs that spawn with all kinds of crazy mods. Excuse me. But props to Ziggy D over at Ziggy D StarCraft for coming up with a video that explains why using Blood Moon would also be a good choice. I'll post a link so that you can check out his explanation. But any other rune I probably would not recommend, so Gloom and Blood Moon are your best bets. You need a way to gain to regain your discipline and preparation. I think most people who play Demon Hunters know how this works. But what I find is that Battle Scars and Backup Plan are the two runes that are used the most, and I was playing with both of these for the longest time until somebody suggested for me to use Focus Mind, and after switching to Focus Mind, I find that it just makes the overall build feel smoother and it makes the build flow better, so that's why I use it. Purely a matter of opinion, but I've tried this out for myself and I found this to be really good, so you can switch to whatever you want or go with my recommendation. And the last skill that we're looking at here, I think is pretty self-explanatory. Since the build is very hatred intensive, you want to regain your hatred back as quickly as possible, and the companion skill with the Bat Companion is a nice way to do so. Taking a look at the passives, Vengeance is the one that's really required for this build. You gain an extra 25 hatred in your pool, but most importantly, you gain the 20 hatred and the 2 discipline whenever you're healed by a health globe, and this is what fuels your build. Probably would not recommend not using this, if you try you try this build without this, you'll find that you'll be running out of hatred really quickly, and you'll be frustrated with the amount of strafing that you're able to do. So having vengeance, absolutely necessary. The other passive that I think you should have is Night Stalker, unless you're using like a really good Legacy Natalia's set. Night Stalker, another way to regain your discipline. But I found over the last couple of weeks that if you have good resource management and your gear is decent enough, you can actually get away with using Perfectionist or Ballistics if you're using the Rocket Storm rune and you just want to do more damage, or any other rune of your choosing. But I find that if your gear is good enough and you have good resource management, you can get away with using either of these two runes. But if you don't, or if you don't have good resource management, Night Stalker, absolutely good. The final passive here is Tactical Advantage, and you gain the movement speed for 2 seconds, and this is in addition to Vault. This is what makes your build flow really fast. It makes your gameplay really fast, and I recommend using this even if you're using Smokescreen, because you just go faster. And if you don't have good enough gear, or you just want to do Magic Find runs at a more leisurely pace, you can switch to Perfectionist, because I think it's the passive that makes the most sense when playing this build. Alright, so that does it for the skills section of this build. One more time, you can pause the video, take a look at the skills I have here. And the next section will deal with the stats and the gear for this build. In order to make this Strafer build work, you'll need at least the minimum stats that you have that I'm showing right now on the left. If you can't hit the 4 main stats, don't even look at the additional stats. If you're having trouble reaching these benchmarks, use Perfectionist over Tactical Advantage. You'll move slower, but you'll be able to survive and kill things when you're doing your Alkaiser runs. If you're still having trouble killing things or surviving, you can go back to Act 1 and Act 2 and do your magic finding that way in order to obtain gear or get gold to buy gear off the auction house or trade. And I've included the sweet spot here because this is what I've been playing with, and basically anything over these 4 benchmarks is pretty much a bonus. Now, once you have these 4 stats set in stone, you can move on to the additional stats. Now, these additional stats that I've listed help make the build flow much better, and it makes your movement and your killing more efficient. And I've listed the ones that you should give priority to on the left. Pickup radius. When you're strafing through monster packs, you don't have to go back and collect the health globes that drop. Movement speed. This is an Alkaiser run build, and you want to move as quickly as possible, so that's pretty much self-explanatory. Critical hit chance is there at 40%, so you can proc Night Stalker. And everything on the right is nice to have, not really needed, especially the last mod on there, which is Life on Hit and Life Steal. Now, I've been testing this for the last couple of weeks, and although I'm still in the process of testing, I will say that I'm probably going to say Life on Hit and Life Steal are absolutely not necessary for the build given your other stats. So don't go looking for pieces of gear that have this stat on it. It's nice to have, but not really necessary. The final thing that I want to say is avoid items that have attack speed. That includes the really popular items such as Endariel's Visage, Calamity, Lacuni Prowlers, all the other items that have the high attack speed. Avoid them. You should be strafing 90% of the time, and because strafe is a hatred intensive build, you want to use up your hatred as slowly as possible, so that's why I say avoid attack speed. Now, before I move on to my own stats and gear, I'm just going to show you my follower really quickly. My follower is the Templar, and the reason why I chose the Templar as my follower is because it has it can hold the most Magic Find, because it can hold a shield and a weapon that can spawn with Magic Find. And as you can see right here, these pieces of gear have Magic Find on them, and with the Sunkeeper being the most source of Magic Find that I have. And this is the only piece of gear that can't spawn with with Magic Find, so just give the Templar Relic some nice defensive stats on it. For skills, everything on the left. I don't recommend using anything on the right, even for normal play. The most important skill that you want to have is Inspire, so absolutely have that because of the extra hatred per second. Now, taking a look at my own stats, you can see right here, this is what I'm currently playing with. You can pause the video just to check what I have right here. Now, for my gear, this is what I paid for it, and some of the pieces you're going to find are overpriced. For your gear in general, if you're doing Paragon farming, you absolutely want to have a helm that has a socket in it, along with the Hellfire ring. And I'll actually explain how to get this in a little bit, but the reason being is because you can add the gem that gives a 31% increase to bonus experience on your helm. Combine that with the 35 from your ring, you'll get 66 bonus experience, and that does wonders for Paragon leveling. So absolutely have these two items on your Demon Hunter if you're doing some Paragon leveling. Now, as you can see right here, I'm using the 4 pieces of Natalia's set. You can pause the video just to check what the gear I have here, and I just use this set mostly because of the stats that the 4 pieces give, and I really like the 20 maximum discipline because I can get those extra tumbles in, that extra shadow power in before I have to use preparation. The other set items that I have here are Inna's Temperance and Inna's Favor. I think most of you who play Demon Hunters know why I use these, but for those of you who don't, it's the 12 movement speed, and that's the only reason why I really use them. It does have the attack speed increase right here along with the Natalia's Reflection, but the rest of the stats that you gain off of these 2 pieces of gear, they offset this 1 increase to attack speed, so I'm not too worried about it. The other legendaries that I have here are Strong Arm Bracers and Vile Ward. These are pretty self-explanatory. Great defensive stats, great offensive stats, and if you can find rares that are better than these that you can use, or you can afford, I should say, pick them up. The Dead Man's Legacy, I think, is probably the only quiver I would recommend for even a poor man's build, simply because of the stats that it can spawn with, and if you can find one similar to this with the lowest attack speed possible for the amount that I paid for it, I think it's a huge bargain, especially if this build does get more popular amongst Demon Hunter players. Now, the Hellfire ring, like I said, you need this in order to do your Paragon leveling. You can't get this ring by normal means. You can't get it by normal magic finding or buying it off the auction house. You can do a quick internet search of how to get this ring, but basically I have this listed at 7,500,000 because I paid someone 5 million in order to help me collect the pieces to craft the ring. I paid 2 million to the little girl merchant in Act 2. I forget what her name is, for the plan to craft the ring, and I paid 500,000 gold to the jeweler in order to craft the ring itself. The last 3 pieces of gear are my amulet and my gloves and my crossbow. Starting with my amulet and gloves, you just really want to have offensive stats on it: high dexterity, high critical hit chance, high critical hit damage. Nothing else really matters, but given my budget at the time, along with what was available when I was searching the auction house or trying to magic find, these 2 items are what I ended up using. But if you can get items with higher offensive stats and you have the budget to afford ones with defensive stats on them, pick them up. Now, the crossbow, I've been using a rare because I wanted to decrease my attack speed, so that's why I ended up using a rare. I was using Manticore for a long time, and you can absolutely get away with using that. 950 minimum DPS Manticore with 2 sockets and high critical hit damage, at least over 85%, and Like I said, life on hit, life steal, not really necessary to this build, so don't go looking for crossbows or manticores with that mod on it, because it's not really necessary for the build, and it just jacks the price up for some reason. Alright, so that about does it for this guide. If you have any suggestions as to how to make this build much better, please let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed my take on this Paragon leveling Strafer build. And thank you very much for watching. This is Akukami, and I will be seeing you on another video.